Chapter 12. The hum of Jade's room's air recyclers was a lullaby compared to the chaos unfolding on the screen in front of us. Jade and I were sprawled back on her fancy zero-grav couch, while Helen bounced like an excited child. "The nobles can fight him and you should be helping. We all should be there and fight him together," Helen Blackstar announced, her voice slicing through the calm like a plasma blade as she paced around the room. Her eyes were wild, dancing with the kind of fire that could either fuel a revolution or burn down an empire. I couldn't help but let out a low whistle. Nobles with their little play armies can't beat a Star Knight, and if you don't remember, I can't fight, I say and tap the base of my neck where the inhibitor chip is. "But you could still help. Helen says you know Bookworm's strengths and weaknesses. With your advice the nobles' forces could defeat him. Now that would be something to see." I leaned back, letting the gravity cushion mold to my frame. "But they're fools if they think they can take him down," I say. "Wolf, this is serious," Helen snapped, her usual charming facade crumbling like an asteroid belt in a skirmish. She was all sharp edges and dire warnings, a clear sign that the political atmosphere was more toxic than the fumes on a mining freighter. "Of course it's serious," I replied, the words tumbling out with a wry chuckle. "They're about to get obliterated. Bookworm is not just my former mentor, he's a fortress masquerading as a man." I knew it was no exaggeration. The old knight shield was more unyielding than the bedrock of Jade's family's minds. "More like a mech suited for annihilation," Jade added, her tone flat as fresh-pressed uniform pants. She knew from her own mother how dangerous a Star Knight was. "He's going to leave nothing but stardust in his wake." Helen's lips were pressed into a thin line, clearly unconvinced. It seems that my crippled state had given the people of this planet the wrong idea of how powerful a Star Knight is. But before another word could whip through the charged atmosphere, the screen on the far wall flickered to life, hijacking our attention. And there he was, Bookworm himself, his image broadcasted across every frequency, his voice booming with the force of a supernova. "Surrender now, rebel forces," he declared, or face total annihilation. While most would balk at such a threat, the nobles' response was almost laughable, a mocking refusal that sealed their fate. The live feed switched, and we watched, transfixed, as Bookworm's mech, a titan among stars, soared toward the noble's shield dome. "Looks like those poor fools' end has begun," I murmured, a curious mix of awe and foreboding settling in my chest. The battle was calling, and here I sat crippled and knowing if I went there, I would just die myself and worse there would be no one to stop Bookworm after. "Look, Ice Wolf," Helen said, her voice slicing through the tension like a plasma cutter, "if you throw in with the rebels, we might just have enough firepower to blast Bookworm out of the sky." I couldn't help but chuckle at the thought. Me? Fight my mentor in a crippled Starblade, with my only backup, some nobles play army? The very idea was more absurd than a gravity-free jousting match. On second thought, more absurd. Some rich people actually did that, never mind. "Helen, you're missing the big picture here," I replied, shaking my head. The room seemed too small for the enormity of what she was suggesting. "Bookworm isn't just any old knight, he's a brick class. His shields could take a supernova point blank and ask for seconds." "Surely there's a limit," she insisted, her eyes narrowing in that calculating way of hers. "Maybe, but it's a limit that these nobles have no way of reaching." My fingers tapped against my leg, itching for the hilt of my rift cutter. "The guy's got more layers than the core of a neutron star. He is a brick, it would take multiple high-power nukes to bring his shields down, and while jumping is his weakest power he can always just run away if need be." Helen's gaze flitted away, searching the corners of the room as if the solution hung on the walls with Jade's collection of scattered hollow art. "There has to be a way. Trust me," I continued, "brick knights don't crumble under pressure, they thrive on it. We'd need a black hole to suck away his defenses, and last time I checked, those were in short supply." She huffed, clearly annoyed by the cold splash of reality. "So what, we just sit back and watch? Sometimes the best move is to let the titans clash and pick up the pieces after." I offered her a half grin, trying to lighten the weight of impending chaos. "Besides, Bookworm's always got an ace up his armored sleeve. But hey, maybe the nobles have a secret super weapon that can strip away his shields." "Maybe we do," Helen murmured softly, the fight draining from her posture. Before I could follow up on that, the screen flickered and my attention was drawn away. The screen snapped to an all-channels incoming transmission, cutting through our argument like a vibro blade. Helen and I snapped our heads toward the screen where Bookworm's angry regal visage glared out. His eyes were steel, his voice the calm before the storm. "Attention, noble traitors," he boomed, his words echoing in the tight confines of Jade's quarters. "You have had your warning now, face annihilation both for you and your whole house. Let your deaths be a warning to the rest of the planet." "Is he serious?" Helen whispered, her fingers curled into fists. "Bookworm doesn't bluff. He might be one of the most diplomatic knights, but a Star Knight always follows through with their threats. We have to," I said, my gaze locked on the screen as if trying to reach into the man's mind behind the projection. We didn't have to wait long for the noble's response. The screen fizzed, then displayed a group of them, decked in their gaudy finery masquerading as military uniforms, sneers painted across their pampered faces. "Mighty Star Knight, know that we bow to no one," one spat, the disdain in his tone enough to curdle star milk. "We are the nobility of this world and will avenge the Blackstar family, and we will." His grandstanding cut off as the feed switched to an external view, courtesy of camera drones hovering outside the forcefield dome of the noble estates. My breath caught as I watched Bookworm, encapsulated in his mech, rocketing towards the shimmering barrier like some kind of celestial comet, trailing fire and fury. "Reckless," Helen gasped. "Or calculated," I countered, knowing full well the old knight's penchant for dramatics. "He's sending a message." What happened next would go down in the history books, well, at least the history books on this planet. The nobles might have had their wealth, their titles, but Bookworm? He had guts made of neutronium and a shield twice as strong, and he was about to make the whole planet feel his weight. Streaks of plasma fire crisscrossed the scene like irate comets, painting a deadly light show against the black canvas of the night sky. I flinched, half expecting the barrage to turn Bookworm's mech into celestial scrap metal, but inside knowing it wouldn't happen. But the Star Knight barreled through the onslaught without so much as a hitch in his trajectory. "By the stars," Helen muttered under her breath, "he's not even slowing down." "Those are top-grade plasma weapons," Jade noted, her eyes wide with a cocktail of horror and admiration. "That much firepower could shred a barge's shields in seconds. It will take a lot more than a little plasma to get through those shields," I scoffed, watching as Bookworm's mech neared the forcefield dome that shimmered over the noble's estates like a soap bubble promising safety. "He's got a force crystal drill. Where did he get that?" I say, pointing at one of Bookworm's mecha's arm weapons. "He didn't have that when we arrived. There must be a hidden weapons cache somewhere in the solar system." I mused. True to form, as the giant mech approached the barrier, an appendage extended from its frame, a combat force crystal drill, glowing hot and hungry for action. With a precision that belied its size, the drill whirred to life and tore into the dome's surface. It bored a hole clean through, and Bookworm's mech slipped inside just before the field fizzed and resealed itself. "Look," Helen pointed at the screen. "He's trapped inside the shield now." I shook my head, chuckling at her naivete. "Helen, you don't get how strong his shields are." In the next moment, the Star Knight made my point for me. From the torso of his mech, a compartment opened, and what emerged sent chills down my spine, a nuclear bomb, primed and ready. He launched it while still within the confines of the dome, a stone's throw away from his own position. "Is he insane?" Helen gasped, stumbling backwards, falling onto the couch. "Insane? No. Audacious? Absolutely." I couldn't suppress a grin. "Watch and learn, princess. Watch and learn." The bomb detonated in a blinding flash, a miniature sun birthing from within the shield's belly. In any other circumstance, that would have been the last anyone saw of Bookworm. But as the fiery inferno roared and the estate's defenses flickered in protest, one thing became crystal clear. The mad Star Knight was anything but trapped. The shield held only for a moment, then the nuclear fireball blossomed like some hellish flower bursting outward as the shield failed, its petals of destruction unfurling in an instant. The fortress that the nobles called impregnable became nothing but a memory in a heartbeat, its structures shattering like glass under the pressure of an unforgiving sun. "Boom," I whispered, half to myself, as the shockwave rippled through space and time, making even our distant viewing screen flicker with sympathetic tremors. Helen clutched at my arm, her eyes wide with a cocktail of fear and awe. But the fallout." "Relax," I assured her, pointing at the epicenter where the inferno raged fiercest. "See that?" Through the incandescent haze, a silhouette emerged, Bookworm's mecha, floating like a colossus unscathed amidst the chaos. The knight's shields glowed red, pulsing with the strain, yet they held strong against the nuclear tempest that he had unleashed. "His shields are holding?" Helen was incredulous, her words nearly lost in the din of alarms blaring from the broadcast. "Red hot and rock solid," I nodded, grinning despite the severity of the situation. Bookworm had just single-handedly decimated a fortress that could have withstood an orbital bombardment. Is there anything that can break him? She murmured, more to herself than to me. Only his own resolve, or lots of nukes hitting him one after another, I replied, knowing full well the determination that drove men like Bookworm. In this game of high-stakes chess, the old Star Knight had just declared checkmate with a move no one on this isolated planet saw coming. We watched as the flames died down, the dust settled, and the silence after the storm hung heavy. There, amidst the ruin and the smoldering debris, stood Bookworm. A testament to the might of a brick Star Knight, the kind of power that reshaped empires and rewrote history. Guess we'll need to revise the manual on siege warfare, Jade quipped, unable to suppress a smirk. Rule 1. Don't mess with a Star Knight. Or Rule 2, Helen added, her voice tinged with newfound respect and despair, make sure you have one on your side. What's this now? Jade says. The screen showed Bookworm fly up then shoot down, drill arm extended, boring down into the earth. Oh no, Helen says, holding her hand over her mouth, the family bunker. What now? I say, turning to look at her. The nobles have a bunker deep in the mountain almost a mile down, that must be where he is going. He is tunneling down to the family bunker. We have to stop him. Helen gasps. How? I ask. You saw him just eat a nuke point blank, so unless you have something much stronger than a nuke to throw at him, we're out of luck. I say. Wait, the bank job, Jade pipes up. That's the only thing that might pull him away. The bank job was a plan to steal a large monocrystal from one of the banks on the planet. The currency of the human empire is credits. Credits are actually a digital representation of a fraction of a monocrystal. Most people never earn enough to actually afford a monocrystal, so most people don't think about it, but all banks are required to actually hold the value of credits they issue in monocrystals on planet to stop bank lending shenanigans. All planets in the empire have at least one bank with a vault containing some monocrystals. This planet had two. Now monocrystals come in 3 flavors corresponding to the 3 kinds of powers and are various sizes. A good rule of thumb is the bigger the crystal the better when it comes to monocrystals. Monocrystals also grow slowly over time as long as they are fed the right mix of fluids and gases. Jade's company didn't have any crystals on hand that could work as a resonance crystal for the beacon, all of them too small, as it was much cheaper to use a smaller monocrystal and use machines to amplify their power for most things. Our plan had been I could pull the main jump crystal out of my blade, and with focused monotransfusions and some very rare minerals from Jade's company, I could speed up the growth enough that in a month it would be large enough to work. The grow the crystal plan had a few holes like disabling my starblade, but it could work and was safe. The bank job plan was fast and risky. We could just break into a bank vault and liberate a monocrystal large enough that with some techno-sorcery it could be made to work in about a week. It was just that the monocrystal was inside a bank vault. You know we aren't ready for that, I say, tapping my neck where my inhibitor chip is. Well, I have a plan, Jade says. You go to the Empire Bank and make a mess demanding to withdraw a large monocrystal with credits. You do have enough credits. Your fan club says you haven't donated any large amounts to charity, so you can afford one big enough. Wait, I have a fan club? And how do my fans know about my finances? I ask, turning to gape at Jade in astonishment. Jade laughs. That's what I like about you. You don't realize the power you have compared to the average person. Every Star Knight in the Empire is a celebrity and has a dedicated fan group that tracks their every move despite the best efforts of the Eyes and the Star Knights. Of course, all most people know about you is that you rescued me, and you wouldn't turn in that one drug dealer you bought nose candy from. As I contemplate my current legacy, that of a knight who rescues rebel princesses and protects his smack dealers, Helen chimes in. How is Ice Wolf robbing a bank going to make Bookworm come running? That force drill, Jade says, waving at the screen that shows the molten remains of the noble's fortress, the equipment cache that held that drill. It was made by our company and included in it was a backup beacon. And you're bringing this up now? Helen says, eyes narrowing in accusation. I didn't know where the cache was. The Star Knights that took it also took 2 other caches, and the government has or had a backup beacon as well, so Bookworm doesn't want the beacon replaced. Jade replies coldly. Why would he not want more of those damned knights to show up? Helen growls. Image, me and Jade say together. The Star Knights rule through the fear of the powerful and the adulation of the common man. Jade continues. I used to hate that about them, but after meeting and talking with them, and after I was rescued and how my family acted, I finally got to know why the Star Knights act the way they do. Helen lets out an unladylike snort. I picked up from Jade, We Star Knights have to project an aura of power to keep the corporations and the bigger governments in check. We could win a fight against them, but the collateral damage would cripple the Empire. What, you Star Knights think you could take on all the governments and win? There are over 100 worlds and 11 core worlds that have billions of people and hundreds of ships. You Star Knights think you could take that all on and win? Helen scoffs. I turn and look at Jade, then respond, we know we can. I say in a resigned tone, because the Star Knots would back us. Jade winces and nods, then I continue, there are over 10 times the number of Star Knots, then Star Knights. We just hold the spotlight because we can protect ourselves and we are responsible for internal politics. But the Star Knots have the fleet, and while Star Knight are selected to have a heroic personality, the Star Knots are chosen to be good little space sailors that follow orders. Also, one of the reasons there are so many of them is they don't burn out, like as Star Knights, from overusing our powers. I look at Helen and continue, so yeah, with the fleet we could take on all the planetary governments and still come out on top. I wave at the Noble's melted fortress. That was one Star Knight. Now imagine a ship with 10 linked Star Knots powering it. They only have one power, but that one power is as strong as a Star Knight's primary power. So the only reason I can see for Bookworm to not replace the beacon is because he wants to have this problem cleared up before the rest of the Empire knows about it. Losing a ship is a disaster and embarrassing, but if a single Star Knight already found and dealt with the problem, then it will just be another exciting Star Knight adventure, waiting to be turned into a trashy vid. But if he calls in the other Star Knights, this will look like a major blow since a fleet will have to come to this planet, and while you have a decent population and industrial base, the core worlds think of this planet as the Outer Rim, and if a dinky Outer Rim planet can give the Star Knights a problem, then those in power might think they can just throw a billion people at us and win. I explain. There might be another reason, Jade says, looking at Helen, but Helen cuts her off hurriedly. So why do you want the Star Knights to come so bad? And we're running out of time, she says, pointing at the hole in the mountain on the screen. I can't beat Bookworm by myself, I say. Then turning to the screen, nah, even with that drill it's going to take hours to bore down to the bunker if it is the usual depth for one of those things. What? Helen says. We can get your chip turned off, then you can fight him. I shake my head, turning back to her question. Blade to blade I lose every time, I say. Bookworm is a brick. I'm a jumper. I can't punch through his shields, he can't catch me. He can only jump about once a day without strain, and he could push it to maybe 5 to 10 jumps before he is fried, while I could jump around the planet all day, or back and forth from the sun to the Oort cloud a dozen times before I start bleeding from the eyes. In case you forgot, I jumped a whole star blade unassisted halfway around the planet without so much as a nosebleed. But in a fair fight to the death I lose every time. All I can do is run. This is why new jumper knights are paired with bricks, for this very reason. Coming back to the plan, Jade says, you go to the Empire Bank and grab a crystal, and then I go to the local bank at the same time and withdraw one in the name of the company. With luck the disruption should cover my withdrawal, and if I do get caught I'll just say I was preemptively preparing for Bookworm to order a beacon. I am filthy rich too. You know, Jade says, flouncing her hair. And what about me? Helen asks. Am I just to sit here and scroll through vids? No, you're going to get your noble buddies to finish digging the rebel nobles out and hide them, I respond. Jade, can you hook her up with a mining mecha or drones, and I'll cover for whoever pulls the short straw to pilot it down to finish the digging. Turning to Jade with a grimace I say, you're going to have to disavow whoever it is temporarily, can you do that? Jade wrinkles her nose and sighs. Jarmany pair bonded with a local girl, so it will be plausible, but I hate how it will make the corp look. Helen snorts. You care more about how your corp looks than the noble families trapped waiting for a crazy knight to dig them out and murder them. Yes, Jade says, coldly staring Helen in the eye. They signed their own death warrant by rebelling against the Empire. This corporation employs tens of billions across the Empire, and we only operate because the Star Knights led us, and our employees only follow our orders because we protect them both now and after they retire. Ha, Helen says, as if the Star Knights could do anything against your corp. Jade just shakes her head and says, Star Corp. Helen blinks. What Star Corp? She asks. I laugh mirthlessly. There used to be 7 Megacorp. Then one day one of Star Corp's workers was awakened as a Star Knight, Fire Phoenix, I think his name was, and he decided to fight it out with his former employer for some reason, and well, he is the reason all us trainees now have inhibitor chips, and the Empire has one less Megacorp.